Okay.
Atlanta.
Yeah. Huh.
Man, oh man.
There we go again, man.
Yep.
I love again from the very first note. I love it. It's pretty good. I'm sitting here with musician friends here tonight. It's really fun. Dave, Jess, and Joe Rudd are here, and it's really fun to be talking music and listening to this music being made and watching these guys share our amazement at how good the music is.
Yes, indeed. I'm sitting here by myself and marveling at the same thing. So, anyway, folks, I'm Gary Lambert in Ridgewood, Queens, New York. He's David Gans out in Oakland, California. But in our brains, we are in Atlanta, Georgia right now, a city with a great Grateful Dead history, going back to venues like Piedmont Park and the Atlanta Fox and the Omni. And where very recently Bob Weir returned in triumph with the Atlanta Symphony Orchestra and Wolf Bros. So a lot of Atlanta history, a great place always for these guys to play, and a place where a lot of people love this music.
I was just listening to that 1969 Piedmont Park show. The Grateful Dead and the Allman Brothers Band played for free in Piedmont Park. And Carol Hart was posting photos from Piedmont Park today on Facebook. So I guess the Dead and Company tour was paying a visit too. But man, the Grateful Dead music from 1969 was just fierce. And I was thinking that with my buddies down there tonight. We're listening to this amazing deal that just went on and then it came down and then went out again. And we're thinking, hey, this is just the second song.
Yeah, no, they are not wasting any time at all at any of these shows, and boy, watching this is a good use of our time, and we think it's a good use of your time. And we're here to tell you you're watching this courtesy of nugs.net. Of course, if you bought this concert, you already know all that stuff, but maybe you're watching it on YouTube as part of the preview of the second set of tonight's show. Every night of this tour, Nugs posts a preview of the first and second set. And our little feature is part of the preview of the second set. So that's how you're getting to watch this. But Nugs would very much like to entice you to then go back and buy the whole show. And then you can go back and watch the first set and the second set. And in a 48-hour window, you can watch it as many times as you want. I think that probably adds up to 8 times if you fit it in that window. And I could watch this show 8 times, I think.
If you don't sleep, you could probably watch it a couple more times.
That's
So
right.
here's what they played in the first set. We should run that down. They opened with a sweet little jam into Cassidy, which went into that sprawling version of Deal. Really, really great stuff. Into Samson and Delilah. Friend of the Devil, which again had tremendous dynamics. It Hurts Me
And
Too. Yes,
I was just going to say,
Gary.
"Friend of the Devil" was a return to the '70s ballad arrangement. I think Dead and Company had mostly been playing the American Beauty traditional version, but they slowed it down and did a lovely job on it.
I'm very happy that they did too. Hurts Me Too. And then they played Tennessee Jed, which again, my musician buddies and I were marveling at. It's such a perfect example of the uniqueness of Bob Weir's guitar style and the whole collective creativity of this band. And then the beautiful vocal by Oteil Burbridge on If I Had the World to Give.
A Grateful Dead
And
rarity. They only played it 3 or 4 times live. I'm so glad it got brought back, and especially glad that it got brought back with an O'Teal lead vocal.
yeah, and he's got that coming out on a record sometime soon, I do believe.
That's right.
We'll know more about that soon. And then I'll have to let you talk about going down the road feeling bad because I came up here to get ready to do this and missed it.
Well, not much to be said except yow, because it was a very energetic version with a great little diminuendo toward the end. They brought it down and sang the refrain a few times and then really slammed the ending hard. Um, this band's dynamic range is just a thing to marvel at. If I can go back to It Hurts Me Too for a moment, man, that was some
Yeah.
deep, gut bucket, authentic blues playing. John Mayer never sounds to me like a rock guy playing the blues or a pop guy playing the blues. You know, I've seen this guy on stages with BB King and Buddy Guy and Derek Trucks. I mean, masters of the genre, and he more than holds his own. He feels the blues. He doesn't just play them as a technical endeavor.
And as we were saying downstairs, he certainly wasn't pretending to be Jerry Garcia doing that. He was doing John Mayer.
Yeah,
Doing it proud, yeah.
yeah.
So a little bit more about Nugsnet before we throw to our recorded thing, which I'm really looking forward to sharing with you. They have this online streaming service now you can subscribe to and have access to an immense library of, God, Grateful Dead. Is Jerry Garcia's on there too, right? Jerry Garcia band stuff,
I think there is some.
and
Yeah,
Further and Wolf Rose and Dead and Company. It's just such a great variety of Dead related stuff. And then there's all the other stuff like Fish and Wilco, Gary's other favorite band in the world.
Goose,
Yeah, tons of
Humphreys
great stuff.
McGee, Moe. A lot. I mean, a lot of the bands that followed in the wake of the Grateful Dead and are adding their own jamming history to it all. And then you also have access to artists like Bruce Springsteen and just a tremendous catalog of stuff, uh, career spanning stuff for a lot of these people. You can go back years and years and years and find a favorite show by one of these artists, to stream the audio if you're a subscriber, or to download shows. There's just so many options. And as we've said, it's unique in the world of online music because it's completely devoted to live music.
Yes, that's one of the things that it is the thing that makes it unique. So please visit nugs.net and check it out and see if there's a subscription thing to your liking. You can subscribe to the entire tour of Dead and Company on video. You can get downloadable audio files in various formats of the just shows you want to hear, and so on. So please visit nugs.net. And now to our scheduled feature.
Yes, indeed. We had the great pleasure of talking to a guy who's been a friend of ours for decades, a guy whose work we've admired both in and out of the Grateful Dead community, a fantastic musician in his own right, but also a guy who kind of transformed the sonic landscape of the Grateful Dead
He certainly
with his
did.
work with them behind the scenes in the 1980s and up to the end of the band. Bob Bralove. There's not much more to say except we won't be back after this, so we'll say our good nights now. But we really want you to enjoy this interview with Bob, and we very much want you to enjoy the second set. So have a good evening, everybody.
We'll see you Tuesday. Dead Air is very, very happy to welcome our good friend, the wonderful musician Bob Bralove, to our virtual stage here. How you doing, Bob?
I'm doing great, thank you. Great to be here.
It's
Great to see
lovely
you,
to
my friend.
have you again this year. We did this last year during the breaks of the Dead and Company streams, and we're happy to be visiting with you again. What's new?
Well, lots of projects happening. I've done a lot of stuff for Henry Kaiser's solo stuff, solo guitar. I'm not sure exactly, but you can Google me and Henry, and you'll find us. And so that has been a lot of fun. It stems out of his work during COVID, where he's been producing amazing amounts of wonderful music and video. And so I got to participate in some of those recently again, and that was wonderful. As you well know, I'm working on a record of my songs with you producing,
I'm
David.
excited to be doing that, Bob.
Yeah, me too. It's really it's one of those things where every time I think about something that we might possibly do, 10 more things come into my head. And it's like, okay, there's lots of possibilities, and it just gets more and more amped up in my energy. And I'm very excited to be doing that. We'll be going into the studio next month for the first time, and that's very exciting.
Yes.
And then I'm still working with Patty on our duo with the violin, Patty Weiss and I, violinist and mostly acoustic piano. So that's been very interesting. And now that I have a connection to Megasound, I might want to go in there with her for a day, and we'll probably just peel off a record in one day.
Well, that's Megasonic Studios
Megasound,
in Oakland where we
Megasound,
work.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, that's exciting.
wonderful.
I've enjoyed seeing the stuff you've done with Patty. But let's talk about Dos Hermanos because you guys put out a record a few months ago and you have an actual live gig coming up.
Yes, the record has been wonderfully received. I'm very pleased. with how well I feel like we've communicated with the music, because people seem to be getting it quite well. And that's very exciting. And on July 29th, we will be playing in Townsend, Delaware, at the Weekend at Bertha's Music Festival. And we will be headlining the 29th, and we will be playing with bass and drums, which we've done occasionally, but it's very exciting to do it in this context, because Tom and I are very energized, and it opens up the possibility of these extended grooves happening, and being able to wander away from it, and have that kind of atonal feel with a solid groove under us, and that'll just rock it. And I'm very excited about that.
Great. If I may interject for a moment, this is good, seeming kind of like a Christopher Nolan movie, but the story told in reverse, because we have a lot of people who are new to this experience, to Dead Air and to the history of the Grateful Dead and all that. So we should go back in time a little bit and first tell them who Dos Hermanos is, who the guy you're in Dos Hermanos with, and what his connection to this world is, and also how you came to be connected to this world.
Well, I'm in Dos Hermanos. It's typical of Tom, my partner in this. It's a bilingual pun. Dose is a reference to a portion of medicine that will cheer you up, I'm sure. And hermanos is Spanish for brothers. So the translation into English is dos brothers, not two brothers. And so we've been playing together for just over 20 years, off and on, doing projects, doing everything from symphony orchestrations and performing in front of that, to duo gigs, and we've even had David sit in once in a while. We had a wonderful time with that. And Tom is Tom Constantin of the Grateful Dead, who was a keyboard player for the Grateful Dead. I think it's 69 to 72, is that right?
No, late 68.
68
to 70.
To 70, okay.
Right.
But it was a very busy time, and he was a very productive member of the band during those years.
Yes, yes. And the records he was on, his contribution is just fantastic. It was a time of full experimentation for the band, and trying new things, and actually for the world at that time. And you can feel it in the energy. He came out of a kind of a classical world, was roommates with Phil, and is of course just a master piano player, keyboardist, and he has this bird's eye view of the music, which I can always rely on, so that sometimes I'll get focused on something, and I'm trying to find a solution, and he'll be up above and go, "Oh, why don't you just turn left there?" And I'm home.
I want to give us just one outsider's perspective on what it is that you guys do. That it's mutual improvisation. I've often referred to collective improvisation as spontaneous midair architecture, because everybody's throwing shapes up into the air, and they interact with each other and create something that's bigger than the individual voices. But particularly with you two, who are both just tremendous improvisers and amazingly eclectic players, jamming with you is like trying to get hold of Teflon objects. It's Teflon on Teflon, and it's like a murmuration, when the birds are flying in a cloud and the whole thing like turns left en masse and all that stuff. It's like these giant shapes in the air that you guys are making, that you can't possibly lay a finger on them. They just happen, and then they change constantly. And it's a wonderful thing to listen to, and it's a slightly frightening thing to participate in, because there's nothing to hold on to.
Yeah, you let go of a lot of conventional ideas about how does this song go, because there may be two or three songs going on at once and seemingly oblivious to one another and yet interacting. And that's I love that about collective improvisation, from scratch. I mean, it's great to improvise on songs and on chord changes and everything, but it takes a little bit of daring do to do it this way.
Chutzpah.
That's a good word.
Yeah. Confidence. You have to
Uh,
trust
and, and
trust
and
the process.
and I think it's Tom calls it uh, spontaneous composition.
Yeah.
Since we're both trained in formal composition, and we have these references, um, we kind of understand where somebody is going with a certain phrase or a certain thing. If it sounds like gamelan, we'll both go there, but we'll be playing it differently, because I think that the trick is for us that we're never imitating. We're just being inspired by things, but always trying to be authentic to ourselves. And of course, my training in this is drums in space
Right.
from the Dead shows, which I participated in
Yes.
quite a bit. And seeing that magic happen live was absolutely inspiring. It was just to uh, see them all being who they are in a full sense of freedom, and yet constantly listening to each other and constantly uh, up, updating what they're doing because of what they're hearing and what they're, the fellow musicians are doing. When I produced Infrared Roses, I went around and talked to a lot of the band members to see if they had some opinions of that. It was after it was done that they wanted to sort of share about. And Phil had this most amazing comment, which was so brilliant and so simple. He said, when you go out in space and drums, your first decision is, are you going to play with the other person who's playing or against him? And so immediately you're creating a situation where you're deciding what direction the music is going. And if you play with them, you support them in taking them where they originally thought they were going. If you play against them, it's a brand new scene, a brand new plane of music that has happened, with some sort of counterpoint, some sort of direction, and it defines it differently. And so we're constantly in that mode. And it's really interesting for us as well as it seems for the audience, but that sense of where am I going and where is he going? And sometimes when we're doing it, we have arguments.
Yes. Yes.
And no, I want to go over here and I want to go over there. And at first, when we first started playing together, I was so convinced that I had to win an argument. And we had to get to where I wanted to go to. And then I started listening to our performances that we tape, and I realized the argument is the best part.
Right.
It's not about winning, it's about having the conversation.
Yeah. I've said for years that some of my favorite moments in Grateful Dead music was when it sounded more like an argument than a conversation. And Phil had a great phrase about the theory that everything has to be synchronous and conventionally harmonic. He called it consonance chauvinism, and, and he was a foe of that.
Well, just to further take the timeline back and further set the stage for who this guy is, Bob Bralove came into the Grateful Dead scene in the mid 80s, brought in by Merle Saunders to help with the Twilight Zone soundtrack and music cues and stuff, and wound up becoming sort of the computer music librarian for these guys and helping Jerry get his guitar interface up to speed so that he could play like Jerry with sampled sounds and stuff like that. So you came in as sort of a technician, but because you're such a fine musician yourself, you sort of became part of the musical creative cloud as well as just the technical one, right?
Yes, the position, the thing is with the Grateful Dead is that they are looking for inspiration anywhere they can get it, or they were, and certainly are now with Dead and Company. So I would Mickey opened the door with allowing me to do sequences and change sounds for him while he was doing drums. And at one point, I sort of created these pads for Mickey to play the beam over, and it allowed him to leave the stage at points when his statement was finished, and allowed me to hold down a soundscape while the other guys came out. And I would quickly move away. And then one day, Phil pulled my headphone off of my head and said, "Keep playing." So then I would play these transitions into space, and sort of play with Mickey at the end of his performance, and then play with the band as they filtered in, and then ease out of it.
Let me interject quickly that wound up on an album. I forget which one, but the track list for that set says drums and a track called and a track called Space. And the and was Bob by himself in this moment he's describing between the two sections.
Right. Those sequences when the band was absent and amazing sound was still coming out was sort of in microcosm the phrase "no one's noticed but the band's all packed and gone." and that you really had a unique position in all of rock music, I think. Well, there are people who work for a band. Everyone who works for a band is essential, from the truck drivers to the roadies to everybody. But there are a few people who are really like surrogate members of the band. I would say the front of house sound person is, because they are affecting what the audience hears, for good or ill. Candace Brightman, I always thought, was a crucial member of the Grateful Dead, because her lighting affected our perception of the music, and it affected the band's perception of the music. It could, if the lighting was more purple, the music could get more purple.
Yes.
And you occupied that role with the Grateful Dead in a really amazing and crucial way, and that people should know about that.
Well, thank you. It was an honor. They were totally, I ended up certainly working with Bobby, wrote some songs with him and Barlow and Hunter, and it was a sheer joy and an education of my life. Now, I came from an amazing musician before that. I spent 8 years working with Stevie Wonder, and that was an education about pop form and how brilliant that could be. I mean, he just understood and could improvise in that form and make something funky in a second. He would actually sometimes write a song live.
Whoa.
He'd have the audience with him. He knew he was there. He'd play a part and say, Nate Watts on bass, play this. And he signed the other horns. He assigned the audience parts to sing, and then he'd improvise a song right in front of the audience.
Incredible.
It was amazing.
And his studio craft was also
amazing.
So ahead of his time. Synthesizers were kind of a novelty when Stevie started using them, and he made them sound so much more human with the help of Robert Margoloff and Malcolm Cecil, those incredible innovators. Those instruments just like had a heart suddenly instead of sounding mechanical and tinny. Something I want to mention, Bob, because it makes your appearance here especially relevant to this tour. When we were at Cornell for the show, Mickey came downstairs right after the first set, still toweling off, and sat with us because he wanted to share his plan for this tour. Every drum sequence is going to have a unique kind of narrative to it, a unique character. At Cornell, it was birds, because he had spent time at Cornell at the university's world-renowned ornithology department and was talking about various bird sounds, and he incorporated that into the drums that night. Last night with O'Teal, and he had a thing going. O'Teal was playing a bass banjo, or it's called a banjo bass, I think, and Mickey was playing a balafone, and they had these incredible loops going with Jay Lane on drums. And as I listen to Mickey incorporating these sounds into the mix and sending them out into these vast spaces, I think, what hath Bralove wrought? you really enabled the Grateful Dead to do that, and we are all benefiting from it on this tour. I hope you get to hear some of the shows, because I think you'll really be tickled and proud.
Well, Mickey is such a brilliant sound. His passion for sound is astonishing. His records sound fantastic.
Yeah.
Everything is actually absolutely calculated to get the best sonic quality. The bass is round and big, and the highs are clear. And so his fascination with other kinds of sounds was, long before I was there. Before I was there, he was frying bacon for Drums in Space,
That's
the
right.
microphone.
Famously.
So
very analog. It was not digital bacon, it was analog bacon.
right. We can bring it to him digitally now, but and the progress in computers since I was working with him has made all of this so much easier and quicker and sound better. And it's just, just like him to figure out something like this to do for the last tour.
Yeah.
And, he's just, he has a library of his own sounds that he uses that are just amazing. And he's been keeping that for I think his entire life.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And he also, he had this great relationship with the Library of Congress and the Smithsonian, where he was collecting original field recordings and also digging up ancient recordings from the very dawn of field recordings. And he's incorporated that into his work, as well as bringing it in its pure form to the world.
Gentlemen, I hate to interrupt, but we have run out of time. The band is going to go back on stage soon. We're doing this in between sets of the Dead and Company show, but I want to say that the most recent Dos Hermanos record is available, and it's called Persistence of Memory. It's quite wonderful. Bob, where's the best place to find that record?
Well, if you want the CD itself, then Amazon has it. And otherwise, if you want it streaming, it's available on most streaming formats. And you can always go to bobbralove.com to get any of the links you need.
Great.
That's what I was hoping to hear. Thank you.
Bob, it's always great to talk to you. Look forward to seeing you in person one of these days soon. And look forward to the next musical adventures.
And I get to have a musical adventure with you in a few days. I'll see you in the studio on June 6th. Great. Thank you, Bob Bralove. Great to see you.
Take care, Bob.
Maybe it's at the days child are born, moving with a pinch of grace. You may be a clown in the burying ground, or just another pretty face. You may be the face of Ophelia, sleeping in the chance to dream. Honest to the point of recklessness, self-centered to the extreme. Ain't nobody messing with you but you. Your friends are getting most concerned. Soon as you smell the truth, baby, it's your fight. But baby, don't get burned. And when the smoke has cleared, she said, that's what she said to me. You're gonna wanna bet to a bachelor. Well, after you told me, okay, that's